there, I'm Zoe Ho. I'm a somatic therapist, and this is We All Got Problems. Today, we're talking about the idea of home. When you're somebody who has moved to many different places to live, you have been transplanted, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And when you have intersectionality such as autism, neurodivergence, and artistic, creative as well. I've been very fortunate in this podcast to talk to people from all walks of life who are creative and who are interested in growth and healing and intersectionality. Today, we talk to Sideah Alladice, an intersectional creative and business owner of Content by Sid. She's currently residing in New York City in Brooklyn. Originally, she was from North Vancouver, BC. As a young person, Sid began her creative and film journey as an actress, and since then has worked in documentary filmmaking, receiving grants, including from Indigenous Screen Office. She is also a stand-up comedian and a spoken word artist. I loved Sid's unique blend of insightfulness, sensitivity, honesty, and she's truly inspiring in how she has navigated challenges. It's not crushed, but rather able to steer herself alongside community, becoming a leader today as a female entrepreneur, helping other femmes and those with racialized and marginalized identities to speak their truth, to sell their brands, and to really boost their voices. Sid is going to share with us the surprising benefits she discovered as someone who identifies as autistic, neurodivergent, or in BIPOC, as to why New York is a much more warm, friendly, welcoming, and honest place to live, not only to be comfortable, but also to be creative. And so I hope you'll be inspired and also kind of percolate a little bit about your journey. What do you consider home? Are you at home in your body? What is your vision of your ideal future home? And are you happy where you are right now? Are you present with what you call home right now? So it's truly an honor. I am so excited to introduce you to Sideah Alladice. Let's jump in.
We were talking about dogs, and it's so funny. I went to a comedy show last night.
Uh-huh.
It was a Black comedian, and he was talking about dogs in the hood and white people with dogs. And I was I think I was the one who was laughing the hardest because I was like, oh yeah, definitely a white dog owner. Like I walk my dog without a leash sometimes, and then she's like very well taken care of. And he was talking about dogs in the hood, and he's like, they're in the backyard. Like you do not want to pet them. It really cracks me up. But yeah, my dog Lola's
Aw.
definitely very a white person.
You know, I was just really glad that she gets to live like a white person. Like, you know what I mean? Right? Like, my dog that's no longer around, she was definitely living a very white life, right? Like the fanciest. And the new one coming too, like, already has way too many things. Yeah. It already has like a mansion.
Like a little house to sleep in?
A plush mansion. You know, it will be
Oh.
very beautiful for this podcast to show this. Look at this mansion. It has a tassel.
Oh my
It
gosh.
has
And he
like
doesn't
these drapes for privacy. It
and when
can
he has
like,
time out, he can just put the drapes down.
yeah, whenever he likes, you know, just whenever he needs a little peace and quiet.
Meditation.
Yeah.
I will say as a caveat, like what I really liked about the comedian, like obviously he's Black, so he can make these jokes about like dogs in the hood and white people dogs. But I think I'm
Yeah.
also kind of in between because on one hand, with my dog Lola, like of course we go for long walks. Sometimes I cook for her, and other times I'm just like, girl, you got to get it together. Stop barking. Go lay down. So I think I kind of go between both. But in the area that I live, we're definitely an anomaly. When I walk her, people yank their dogs away. They cross the
Oh,
streets.
really?
And I'm like, no, she's really, really friendly. She has her name on her harness. But it's a different culture coming from Vancouver where everyone's like, oh, this is a social thing. All our dogs talk. We talk about how they're rescued. And here people are like, why are you coming up to me? My dog's not
Oh,
friendly. Leave me alone.
really?
But it takes a couple of
Wow.
months. It takes a couple of months. And now Lola has met mostly every dog in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
But
so she didn't get hardened, like she didn't, kind of became like, I am now off this hood and I'll be like that.
not at all. She's got such a great temperament that dogs can kind of like lunge at her or excited, and she's just like, yeah, hello. So nice
Wow.
contrast.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And also, yes, you're very lucky. Okay. Yeah. Well, that didn't happen to my dog. My dog actually became kind of more anxious. So apparently some experts say that dogs accumulate stress like through their lives, like a bank account. They get to a point where when they're older, it's like it's built up so much that it starts being like just, overwhelming and all of that.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah, and I think she didn't like feel so happy about us deciding to move countries again. Yeah, she lived in Singapore, Vancouver, the Arctic, and Italy.
Like, I'm done. No more
Yeah,
moving.
yeah, she's like, I had enough. So Sid, can I get you to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
So I'm Sid. My full name is Sideah, and I feel like I have a lot of different sides of myself and personalities. It's hard to know which part of myself I'm showing, but
Yeah.
I'm an actress, comedian, spoken word artist. I have a business. I work in social media, and I live in New York. And I have an arthritic dog.
She has many other qualities. Is that the calling card? You're going.
Yeah, that's the calling card.
Oh man.
she's so who knows Lola. She's just
Tell us more about her intersectionalities. Just
um,
like a few more, I'm sure.
well, similar to like what you were saying about your dog, Lola has traveled with me a lot. She's 16 and she's lived in we went to Ecuador, we lived in LA, Pemberton, Ottawa, Seattle, now here. And I think this is knock on wood, the last time that she wants to move countries. But yeah, she's just a very friendly, outgoing, she somehow brings people together. She's a great little dog. And she has arthritis.
Aw. Yeah, and being able to, travel everywhere and have to look after your dog while going to shows, to perform, to be on set. Yeah, and all of that, I can imagine actually that's quite a juggle.
I've had a lot of help.
So, I want to talk about the cool stuff that you do because, you have done so many kinds of different art forms. And in a way, I think all of this lends to something that connected us is our sense of what is home when we have so much intersectionality. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your intersectionalities and how that plays with the genres that you move in and out of, the countries that you move in and out of? Yeah, it's a lot. What sparks for you when I ask you about this?
It was interesting as I haven't really used that word intersectionality until we spoke a while ago. And I think it is just growing up in Vancouver, which I love, but being a person of color, which I mean I'm pretty light skinned. My dad's black, my mom's white, but even being light skinned back then felt like I was quite different. And working in
Which part of Vancouver?
North Vancouver.
Oh, that makes sense.
It does make sense. So if anyone listening hasn't heard of North Vancouver, it's beautiful. Like the landscape is gorgeous. So you spend a lot of time in nature, great health options, great education, but quite white. Like there are different ethnicities, but it's speak on it a little bit, predominantly white. And I think to speak on it quickly, living in other places, I think the culture in North Van is very accepting. They're explicitly accepting, but they just don't have experience with a lot of different people in the stages of life. That's how I saw it. So growing up, being half black, and people asked a lot of questions, and I was seen as like very exotic. So I felt othered from the beginning. And then working on film and TV as a kid, it was sort of like the inverse, where that me being an outlier was kind of that exotic part of me was the most important part to like come in on a commercial, which bless film and TV. Thank you for all the opportunities. But coming in as, the exotic option and the black option or like Hispanic. So I kind of lived in this world where, it felt like I was continually trying to find myself and try to find a place that felt like home. And then I've always been a writer, just like very curious about the world. Then I just started exploring. I've been in a lot of the places and moved when I was 19 to Los Angeles. And then after that, it was just part of my not journey. Every couple of years, I think, okay, I need something else for my environment. I need another challenge. I need to be in a place that makes me uncomfortable, or I'm discovering new things or new people or new culture, so that I
Mm-hmm.
can learn more about myself in these situations that make me feel different in a way that I haven't felt in a long time. And now being where I feel very settled where I am right now, because I feel like home is within myself and I know the environments that I like. I know the environments that I don't like. I know where I can go to recharge and I know where's not going to recharge me. And I think having that self knowledge, it makes home just kind of like a permeable internal space.
Wow, that's amazing because your new environment, New York, you haven't been there for so many months.
It's been about 5 months.
Yeah. And yet it's where you have really found the, spaciousness and ability to kind of settle into feeling like home is within. Yeah. And I love what you said about, knowing where are the places that recharge you when you need to engage and when you need to restore. Yeah, that's all sounds like such amazing things that became like your home is something you carry around with you now.
But it's interesting to move to New York and find spaciousness because I had come from Vancouver and I spent so much time outside. I would meditate against trees. I was in the forest every week. And then to come here where there's so much noise and there's so many people and different things happening, but yet I feel so much more spacious here. And I think that's because I'm seeing myself, people like me reflected a lot. And
Yeah. So are you saying that there are a lot of artists, there are a lot more people of color, there's a lot more, what are you seeing reflected around you that makes you feel like, hey, like this is more me?
melanin.
Really? That is important though. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like sometimes I go back to Asia, right? And even though, yes, on the inside culturally, I am so white, sadly, sometimes. Yeah, but also on the other hand, there is a comfort to being able to just be versus being considered exotic, as you said. Yeah, in fact, when you said that you went to auditions and in terms of film and TV, it's the outside of what a person is, besides the acting skills and all that, that casting focuses on. I've also gone to these casting situations where either you're like, oh, yes, I'm one of like a million, just like Asian looking girls, and here we go. Or it's like, okay, I'm the only Asian here. Everybody else is like blonde, tall, and white. And it's like, why am I here? So, there's a lot of stuff that plays in like with your head, I think, when you're part of the film and acting industry in Vancouver. Yeah. Did that ever affect you?
One thing that you said though is when you're in Asia and you recognize on the inside you're white, which I also feel too. I'm like, I'm a whitey on the inside, which it's just a product of my environment. But it is important to come out and see myself reflected. And I'm like, I don't have to perform. I don't have to like put on anything. I can just absolutely be. And sometimes just going around a walk in the neighborhood and only talking to people of color is just healing in ways I didn't even know that I needed. But yeah, you can just probably tell from my face. It's just been fabulous. It's been great.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see this kind of like melting into ease. Yeah, which is really
Hmm.
beautiful. So another factor that might be at play that we've talked about before, is also neurodivergence.
Yes. Which,
Yeah.
so not officially diagnosed, but I'm not sure what the word that my doctor used, but ADHD and autism, which I feel like I'm going to do a lot of parallels between Vancouver and New York. But in Vancouver, it felt like we're very accepting, we understand the culture of neurodivergence, but it doesn't come in. I'd found that in practice, it wasn't that accepting because one thing that really stuck out to me that I came to an understanding is I feel here it's in the culture to meet people where they're at, where you might wear from the outside, you might wear crazy outfits. You might wear like try an orange hat and a jumpsuit, and it's not really a thing that people pay attention to. Like it's very much just like mind your own business, not in a way that you're ignoring people, but just allowing people to be. So I found it much easier here because I can be very direct. I can buy something and I don't have to have like in Vancouver, there's this idea of you have to be polite, like, hello, how are you? Wow, I'm really looking for a cherry Pop Tart. Can you help me? Whereas here, you can just put your headphones in, buy the Pop Tart, put it on the counter, pay, not say a word. and leave. And
Mm.
it's fine. It's almost like a relief for the other person because they're like, oh, save my breath. And I found that particular angle I think about a lot. And it's just given me an ability to be myself because there's less performing, there's less
Mm.
putting on, there's less having
Mm.
to think about how do I approach the social situation and just like, well, I'm going to be me. And if you really don't like it, I trust that you can tell me.
Right. Wow. I think that's huge as well. Like, I'm hearing that there's a whole lot less masking. Like, there's a lot less people requiring each other to mask. Like, I can think of Times Square and anybody can do anything. And then at the same time, I think you can be really expressive, but you can also choose to just kind of not. Wow. I actually really like that right now. Yeah, because I am currently living in this culture where seriously, like buying a roll of toilet paper, if you ask the question, it's like a 15-minute conversation. Yeah, everything is like extremely analyzed and detailed and in a language that I can barely understand. And so it's just
Mm.
really sometimes, there are people who are like, oh, we should run around and we should hug everyone and we should, feel that neighborhoody like friendliness and community all the time, like a world of flowers and sunshine. But I think the truth is when you have intersectionalities, like when you have experiences that are informing that, the world is not always really perfectly safe, and that if you're in an environment that actually allows you to choose how many layers you want to share today or not, that makes such a big difference. So for someone like me as well, like I would find that to be quite a relief. Yeah, so just with like neurodivergence and like queerness and like even like mental health, right? Like some days it's beautiful to have community, right? And to, chat, share, volunteer. And some days, no. And there's nothing wrong with that.
There was so much that you said in that last piece. I want to say one little thing as a reflection on it. One thing that comes up a lot for me and I've been thinking about is community, because
Mm,
even in community, I feel like it is very white centered. Community
mm,
is like, sometimes in my experience, I think it's, well, we all show up, we meet at this time, we do these things, we check in. I'm like, for someone who's autistic and burnt out, you don't always want to do that. So I think community also needs to be unraveled a little bit. But I would love to hear what you said about how our past experiences inform how we show up in environments and guides how we react to it.
like when we started our recording and I told you I needed a little moment because I'm transitioning from my first world problem of my puppy not having two balls dropped, just one, right? And just like kind of dealing with that because of my intersectionality of surviving cancer and surgeries and kind of feeling like I just want something perfect for once. I just want life to be easy. I just want to be like a privileged person who spends money, buys a dog, and has a perfectly healthy dog, to just potty train. That's all. But when I realized it's like, oh, there's a situation, it's not the most terrible, but then it's layered with the things that trigger me, then I'm going to have a response that I can be compassionate towards myself about, right? It's still painful, but like right now, I can recognize that, okay, like this is why this is difficult. And so, because of that, when I go out into community situations in Italy, kind of like to what you're saying, I might be going to a community situation where somebody is trying to talk to me about their knowledge of Buddhism, for instance, and their experiences as a very white person living in India, for 3 weeks or whatever it is. And the layers that I filter those conversations through, I'm still seen as this Asian person talking to this person who is very limited in their experience of Asia, right? They have had one experience of it. And so then everywhere I go, instead of directly just saying, well, this is what I know of this part of the world because this is where I'm from, actually, right? You're actually having to listen to what they're sharing. You're going to have to try not to be too much of an expert because, for them, these places are really exotic. I don't think I'm really answering your question, but that kind of made me think about just those small ways of meeting up with people who don't share your culture or your exposure to experiences that are of your culture, and then having to kind of dial back what you can share.
Well, first of all, I want to say maybe this is like a little off book, but I'm sorry that happened to you. these
Mm.
experiences, because to me that reads a little bit of as a microaggression, because bless their hearts, if someone's listening to this, I'm not criticizing you, but I think it's very important if you to have an understanding of where you are as a person in the world, your privilege, your non-privilege, and having that to inform your conversations, because I think that ties into meeting people where they're at. I think what comes up to me when you share that is like, as a racialized person, this is just an observation of like my own, but I mean, that is also a form of masking of, yeah, I would love to hear about that, and please tell me more, and that politeness, which I think is so ingrained. I think it's really challenging when you're neurodivergent or you're queer or you're a person of color, because sometimes people might say things that you have to mask to keep yourself safe. Because if you expose, hey, I'm actually from this country, or I've had this experience, it can become a confrontation, and then confrontation means danger. I guess to like relate it back, just to speak of my experience, I find in environments we can say a lot of things about how we are and how we accept people and how we want to meet people, but it's really important for people to have the experience of living with different kinds of people and catching themselves when they're not being self-reflective and they're not understanding where they are and where that other person is. And that kind of ties back to, I think New York has this like unspoken of culture of really meeting people where they're at. And I think with that comes like honesty and humbleness and directness. So I don't know if that made sense. I kind of went off on a tangent, but
Yeah, but actually, I love that. I think you just brought that all back together so beautifully. And in fact, like you really made me self-reflect for a moment because I was almost like, actually, I'm also feeling a little bit busted in a good way because obviously, I'm going into that conversation that I talked about, as somebody who's not quite meeting people where they're at as well. Because it's like, yeah, this person might have only had a limited experience of something that I know a lot about. Yes, it's a little microaggressive in some ways, but on the other hand, if I remembered that we're all just coming from these really different places, of course, it'd be great if they also reflected that, right? But the truth is, it is that allowing of each other to be messy, right? To have places to learn, to kind of trip, but then to also say, hey, I'm sorry. I think that must be something that you might know more about, and I would love to hear more about it, right? So that we're not stuck in this conversation, like you say, because the issue is the internalized people pleasing, is that, I need to stay safe. So I'm not going to cause a ripple. I'm going to say everything is okay, even though it kind of doesn't feel okay. So I would really love, I think, a more true way of relating, which is, hey, like I hear what you said, but don't you want to question that a little bit, and have that room? That'd be great. But I think these days, a lot of conversations are either we all agree, right, on everything, or, we're just like complete opposites. It's really interesting, actually, that right now we're kind of teasing out community a little bit more for ourselves in this moment. We're both in new environments and we're both trying to figure out what is this place? Why do I feel better here or not?
I thought it was so beautiful how you took such an empathetic view of it and you approached it of how you could have met that person more. And I see that, but I also think too that as a person of color, I really feel like it's ingrained for our default to do the extra work to make the other person comfortable. And I think it's very
Yes.
important for people who have privilege. Like for myself, I know I'm very light skinned, as I've said before. But if someone is white and they've traveled to these places, I don't think that the other person should be doing the work to make things comfortable. And I think that meeting people where we're at is great. And maybe you can say, yeah, hey, I feel like a little uncomfortable in this conversation. I don't feel good. And part of me meeting this person where they're at is like maybe removing myself. What I've noticed here, what I've learned over the last couple of months is like sometimes people are very blunt and sometimes people walk away from conversations and people turn around and I can tell that they don't want to talk to me anymore. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine. This conversation isn't giving you what you need and that's okay. But I would love to see that kind of honesty in more parts of the world everywhere. But I think culturally, we are socialized to want to engage and we want community and we want to be around people and want to hear and be validated. And it's no fault of one person, but I think it's completely normal that in some places we sit and we talk and things get uncomfortable, but we'll just like push that away and keep talking. And I just wanted to say thank you for sharing all of that too. I know that's really vulnerable.
Yeah, I hope that person never listens to this episode. But on the other hand, I feel like that's such a gift. That's such a gift, what you just said, because I feel like you just gave me a piece of New York. And I loved it. It is really true. Like, my kind of Canada side, right? And then my Asian side definitely triples down on that people pleasing, right? And internalizing, like you said, like, oh, let me do all of the self-reflecting and make it comfortable, like unconsciously. And when you told me that you have this newfound freedom in people just walking away and you not feeling, and you walking away when you need to, and neither of you feeling like, that's about the other person being good enough or not good enough. You're not taking it as like that's such an offense to me. It's just like, oh, that didn't work. Whatever. Right. So I think that's beautiful, actually. Right. So that whole people pleasing piece doesn't have to be such a burden.
Well, so there's a couple of things that come up. One, people pleasing. I think there's a scarcity mindset in that of, I have to make this person like me. I have to make this conversation go well because maybe there's not something else there. And one thing I've learned here is there's so many people and there's so many things to do. And you can just leave and go to another neighborhood and go to another event, or you can find people with whom you really connect. So in a moment where it's not working, I've really learned to just walk away or find something else. And that's what I think that's so beautiful about it. It's like there's something in finding people that you can reflect things that you want to be reflected, who have good conversations. There's people who are quite layered. For me, it's not abnormal that I'm a comedian and a spoken word artist and I have a business. People just think, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like it's not a thing. So yeah, people pleasing, I think it needs a lot of different things. It needs an environment. It needs a culture that supports directness. And it also takes like an understanding of ourselves of, yeah, we're people of color, we're femme. My default is going to be doing the work. My default is going to be internalizing. My default is going to be kind of placating everything. So being very hyper aware of it and pushing back in a way that feels freaking uncomfortable. But that's what at least what's coming up for me right now.
Yeah. Wow. I resonate so much with that. And I think that's huge. So, this whole week and also, in all of these times that I've been working with BIPOC people in my work, it's really in my face right now that, like you said, especially for a BIPOC queer femme, I mean, also not femme people, but, BIPOC queer is definitely, there's all of this pain from feeling not enough because of culturally being expected almost like to perform more, to perform better, whether it's your family wanting you to do that, whether it's society being so used to you doing that. And for me to see such beautiful people of all types of careers and, genders struggle with this and being really, really stuck in that thinking of, this is just too much. Whereas even for me and the way I'm working with it clinically is to recognize that I have this, but it's because society made me have to take this on, but I'm really aware of it as well. And so I'm going to rebel against it. And especially what you said, I'm kind of like repeating what you said, I realize. But, in terms of what you said about, I'm going to be really aware of this and I'm going to go through the discomfort of allowing that I'm going to do what my nervous system, my survival system is saying not to do, right? I'm going to be really brave. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to have boundaries. I'm going to say no, even if my body has been taught just to cower almost and fear and to, keep saying yes, even though I don't want to say yes. So I think it's a really big threshold for people to step through. And it's been really in my face that this is what so many of us with that kind of, it's not the same, of course, but then that layer, those layers, it's crazy how much this impacts everyone, right? From the BIPOC queer communities.
It's so layered. And I really felt when you said one thing that stuck out for me was it's too much. And it can feel like too much. What can be challenging is I think there's a lot of rhetoric of trust your body, trust your gut. And that doesn't work because there's noticing, there's thinking, there's emotions, and then there's like a deep knowing, which I think about a lot. And deep knowing takes a lot of work to get to. And emotions bubble up and we think that we can follow our emotions. And I feel this way about this and I'm having this reaction. So this person isn't right or the situation isn't right, but actually that could be your trauma, or that could be your history, or that could be something that you can't always trust that. So that was one piece that I wanted to say.
I think that's huge. So I'm actually going to pause you there because I feel like, yeah, it's worth reiterating. Yeah, because what you're saying is be able to distinguish, right, between when you're having an emotion because of trauma versus when your gut feeling is really informing you. And, those surface level things of, what does your body say? Like, just go with it, right? You can't just go with it until you know how to regulate your nervous system, until you know how to be aware of your trauma and to be kind to yourself, knowing that you do have these layers that somehow you have to carry, unfortunately, right? And then be able to be really clear. And when do you know that you're clear?
I said a deep knowing because, and maybe trust your gut works for a lot of people, but I found I can't trust, but my gut is very complicated. And then the other thing too is, I don't know if you've heard of Ina Garten. She's a chef. She's from New York, and I was listening to her memoir, and of course they're not a person of color, but they said something about how their father had so many expectations of them, of who they were going to be, without recognizing the consciousness of who Ina was. And I really related to that because I think that, as you said, with expectations of people of color, we have to perform. We have to like be the best Black person ever, and there's a lot of perfectionism, but also who we are underneath is not always recognized. And I think that we can kind of battle between these two things of building up so much and performing and being the best. Who we are on the inside is not recognized. So sometimes I think, am I just like not performing anymore? Am I not being a perfectionism, or am I building up who I am and showing who I am? And I don't know that I always have an answer for that, but yeah, it's challenging.
Wow. I really love the way you shared that because I think that made me drop into a place of being more than performing. Yeah, I'm very curious. I definitely want to hear a lot more about what you mean by deep knowing.
Yes. Well, to speak personally, I think as someone who has experienced a significant amount of trauma, as many people have, I have a lot of responses. I have a lot of emotions. I have a lot of reactions. And I think that I felt this pressure of, oh, just go to therapy and go to yoga and run and do this and you'll be fine. And those responses just really didn't get any better. So here at my YMCA, there's a meditation class. So
Mm.
somehow I ended up taking this meditation class 7 weeks ago, and there was something about being in Manhattan, and it's very pragmatic. The teacher comes in and she says, "Hi, my name is Karen. I apologize about the name. Okay. I'm a very nice lady. Don't worry. So we're going to sit and do this." And through that practice, which I've been going every week, it just really grounded me and opened me up. And so I've continued with my own practice. So I like to listen to different teachers or quotes. And one thing that has been helping me a lot is recognizing my thinking and my noticing and my emotions and my deep knowing. I think it's just being with myself really, really, really quietly. I guess that's the best way to describe it. And knowing that, oh, there is so much that comes in our world, and so many people and experiences and places we could go. And deep knowing is, I guess, a way to really just sit with myself that feels peaceful in a sense.
Okay, that's gorgeous. Yeah, and it makes sense. Like it actually really makes sense from that safety and clarity kind of point of view, right? When we're in our trauma brain, we're outside of clarity and window of tolerance. We're kind of spiraling or spinning or frozen. And so when you are embodied and safe and just being with yourself through this meditation, right, that I think it does feel safer when it's pragmatic and not like a woo woo, like, here comes the moon kind of situation.
Just be grateful.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that sounds like what, meditation can do. And in fact, I feel like nowadays, and this connects to a lot of what we're talking about, is that I think nowadays healing actually comes from comes from feeling safe by yourself in community. Safety is achieved through letting your body know that you are safe despite experiences before. And then also that the thinking, like knowing that our minds is going to focus on, the one bad thing versus the nine great things, right? The one bad experience, being able to develop again through mindfulness, meditation, whatever practice anybody can have of coming back home to their bodies, and then being able to go like, okay, this one is trauma brain speaking and this one is who I really am. Yeah, and I feel like what you're saying, what I'm really wanting to is who I really am is just myself, just being myself. Right, to be free to do that, to allow other people to do that. And then, what can that safety and creativity, like what can all of that bring? That is delightful, right? Versus all of this tension, and it's so interesting because on the outside, New York, many people say it's a place of challenge and tension and creativity. Yeah, but I'm so glad that you have found so much. Yeah, that feels like home there.
Well, thank you. And I also wanted to say embodiment too, because that's one word when you were speaking about things that really came up for me. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
everyone has a different definition of embodiment. And I think embodiment, to tie it back, is like having a place of home. And it's wild to me that, yeah, there's a lot of ideas about New York of like it's very stressful and tense. I've actually found I'm more relaxed here, one, because of my meditation practice, two, because of the directness, and three, that you can kind of create your own little ecosystem that you want and work in a way that feels good for you, and people will connect with it or they won't. So far is what I found.
I love the way you summarized it. Like, you're finding what works, right? And you can go to these places where you seem to have more choice there.
I guess to also run back, I thought that moving to New York, everyone's like, it's going to be so hard. It's going to be really challenging. But then I thought, I actually feel like this is an ecosystem where you learn a lot and then you can take it back to other places and hopefully help that culture learn too. Because I don't know if this is making sense, but yeah, there's a lot of trying in Vancouver. There's a lot of effort to do things, but not put into practice, in my opinion. And it's not the
Mm.
fault of like the people there. We're just not exposed culturally to it.
I've discovered working with a lot of people and in my own experience that even though Vancouver seems to offer, right, a lot of desire for inclusivity, right, in the end, a lot of people tend to get marginalized and racialized. And it's not for lack of trying, but somehow the trying is not quite working. And Vancouver ends up being still a very lonely place where people feel othered. Yeah. Because like you said, yeah, there are these announcements about, we're going to acknowledge this and that and include everyone, right? But it's like, let's take more action. Like it would be really different if we actually went out on the land together and talked about, how this land does truly belong to the indigenous people who first were here. Right. So yeah, I think it's that whole performative piece versus the actuality of the experience in my own personal experience as well, like not speaking for everyone. We didn't talk a lot about what you do in detail, but we talked a lot about what you think and feel and are experiencing, which is quite interesting.
I feel really happy with this conversation. Not that my happiness was like very important in this,
It
but
is though.
it is.
Your happiness is very important. I think we have this natural thing with each other where we just get right into the heart of the issues that really matter to us. And on the other hand, I really want people to know more about how in your everyday life, how you're navigating in this world. I know that during the pandemic, you made this really important decision to pivot career-wise. So can you also tell me about what that means to you?
I would love to share. I worked in hospitality for 6 years, which was a great experience. Lived in different cities. And then I pivoted when I came home and I started making documentary films. Really liked storytelling, really put a lot of my focus on femmes and people of color and what are the stories that are not being told and heard. And so then I had 4 projects that were funded by different grants, which I'm very grateful for. And then I came to a place of I wanted to have a business that still aligned with myself and felt like I was making that was still fulfilling. And so it's gone through different phases. And I went back to BCIT, British Columbia Institute of Technology, and I studied marketing strategy and I studied public relations, tried different things, and now it's merged. So my filmmaking experience and my marketing into content by Sid. So where I'm at right now is I work with everyone, but more specifically with femmes of color and people who have their own business, because I think that there's a way that we can create marketing that still feels authentic and still honors where our history and our culture come up, where we may have roadblocks. And I say roadblocks because I do film my clients, we'll film 12 reels. And I know from being on camera quite a bit, sometimes the things that I get hung up on. So I work very closely with them. Long story short, yeah, I work in social media, content by SIDS, and really at the heart of it, I want people of color who have a business, who have an idea, is to feel energized and to feel like they have that push and to feel like they have the playbook and the strategy to grow as much as they want. And to do that in a space that is like still sensitive and honors their culture as much as I can, but still propels forward.
Wow. What types of clients have you worked with? What stories have you been helping to tell that have really touched you?
I will plug one of my clients here in New York, Grace. She owns Pibu, which is Korean skincare beauty, and they also have home care products. She's in Midtown Manhattan. Absolutely beautiful store, wonderful products, and just interesting to see how she was studying at Columbia and switched into having a business. And I also like that her business honors her past. So she is Korean and she went to Korea and loved the products and then came here and wanted to start a store. This is over 15 years. So it's great to just see her store happening and just to see how much traction she's getting. Another client, Ethos, is in Vancouver. So they're an after school educational program, a nonprofit, and they work a lot with Black youth and centering the Black experience and getting these youth into STEM and other places that they didn't necessarily see themselves in. So I helped with their media strategy for their Blackathon event, which is they bring 150 different youth to the Microsoft head office to spend a whole day hacking and coming up with an idea and just like full of ideas and innovation in a way that still is inclusive. So those are two small examples. But yeah, in terms of my services, it's like podcast marketing strategy, video strategy, email strategy. I think that I'm not offering anything different than anyone else would. It's just the way that I work, I think, is a bit different.
Hearing your passion for these people that you're working with, they also sound like people who bring such a source of community inspiration and energy. Yeah, so I think it sounds like a really great way to work globally where you're living to meet these amazing people who are doing super cool things. Wow, that's amazing, actually. I'm so happy to hear that.
Appreciate it.
So you're doing poetry as well? You're doing spoken word?
Yes, I am. It's like the new Harlem Renaissance. And uh, poetry is not only just about what I say, because I'll be honest, like people are like, why are you talking about the mountains and the water so much? I'm like, oh, well, that's where I'm from. But it's also about connecting and seeing what's important to the people in the Black community and meeting people.
Wow. So, 5 months ago, you moved from Vancouver to New York. It sounds to me like you are rooting, exploring, discovering. And ever since you arrived, it sounds like you've found all kinds of ways to engage, whether it is with your professional career, with your creative explorations, and also stand up as well, right?
I haven't done stand up here yet, but I hope maybe I will over the next little while. Why not? It's nice to see what my.
Well, thanks for allowing both of us to unpack some things that are on our minds. And I feel like I feel a lot more sparked. I feel more fiery. Yeah, about going into wherever we're going next in our lives. So good luck in your new home. And maybe we'll meet again to talk more about what home means to, ourselves and to people who are listening. I think this is a big topic for many of us.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk again. And home and embodiment, I think those things are pertinent and they're always changing. In 6 months, a year, we might be having a completely different conversation. I think that's normal.
Yeah, who knows? We would both have moved again.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody for listening. Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, did you enjoy our discussion about home, our hot takes on Vancouver versus other countries? Did you enjoy considering if your dog is a white person? Anyway, have you percolated on whether you feel at home where you are physically in your body, in the city, or wherever you might be living right now? And if not, what are you going to do about it? Do you have any takeaways from our discussion today that might prompt you to be curious and also to be compassionate and courageous and to choose to go after, where you really feel at home. So I'm signing off right now from Italy. This is the last episode of the season of We All Got Problems. And in the meantime, I hope you have a chance to listen to the other episodes where I speak to friends who are comedians and artists and therapists about all the things that we all got. We all got parents, we all got patriarchy, we all got BIPOC bodies and embodiment. There are so many conversations to be had about all the layers that impact us. You are not alone. That is actually the main thing about this podcast. You're definitely not alone. We're all in this together, and let's see each other again soon. In the meantime, I would love to hear from you on Instagram. I am at Avalotherapy, and also my website, avalotherapy.com. My name is Zoe Ho. I'm a somatic therapist, and it means I'm somebody who goes beyond chatting with you about your problems to diving into embodiment in a trauma-informed way to help you process and gain insight from your inner knowing to context, your intersectional and layered life experiences to help ourselves all feel more self-compassionate, more kind, have more fun, feel more alive, all the good stuff. So anyway, it's been really, really great making this podcast for you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. We all got problems, and you're not alone. Bye.